And the ones that were willing to do the work had success. So it's always the people that are willing to do the things that other people aren't are the ones that get successful.
Welcome to Insights into Success. We're with your host Paul Dodds. We hope to educate, inspire and motivate you to achieve your own personal success. We talk to guests from all around the world from a variety of walks of life to hear the realities of their own journey to success. What challenges have they faced? How have they coped with failure? And what have been the keys or will be the keys to their own success? In our Read to Succeed interviews, we talk books that have inspired our guests, and for some, they share their secrets to marketing success. Join us as we give you insights into success. Well, welcome to Insights into Success, where our special guest today is Walter Crosby, who is the managing partner of Helix Sales Development, and he's also a podcast host of Sales and Cigars. So, firstly, Walter, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, it's an honor to have you here, and keen to listen to you and learn a lot about sales. So, but before we do that, what I'd like to do is for you to just start by painting a picture of who you are and how you came about to be where you are now.
Fundamentally, I'm a sales person. I've been in sales for 40 years. I mean, if you go back to being a kid, I was the paper route, all of those types of hospitality jobs that are really sales. People really, were really focused on that. But fundamentally, I'm a sales guy. That's my training. And then one day along my journey, somebody asked me to be a sales manager, and I was dumb enough to say yes, not knowing that what it really meant. And I was happened at a Christmas party, and on the way home, my wife, I told her what was happening, and she was like, "That's great, congratulations. Have you ever managed anyone before?" Knowing that I hadn't.
Right, yeah.
And she's like, "You can barely manage yourself. Like, what are you going to do?" And she wasn't wrong. So I had to go about trying to figure it out. And over the last 20 years, that's what I've been focused. So where I sit today is for the last 9 or 10 years, I've had an agency practice for sales development, where my focus is trying to help sales managers and salespeople really focus on coaching. There's a variety of things that we do, but that was the purpose of starting this organization, was to provide that support to sales managers, because we rarely have a good model to follow, and we get promoted into that role because we were good at something that has nothing to do with management. So that's kind of that's how I got to where I am, the short version.
And so how did you manage when you first became a sales manager? How well did that go?
Poorly. We had a small team of about 4 people, and they said, "You need to get rid of Joe." And I'm like, "What do you mean I need to get rid of Joe? If you wanted Joe gone, you should have let him go before you made me the bad guy." So what ended up happening was we got rid of another guy, and Joe became the top salesperson inside of a year. He just needed a little help, a little coaching. So wow. I did all the mistakes that most sales managers do. I used more of a stick than I should have. I didn't do enough coaching. I tried to be the hero. And once I learned that those were the wrong things, you get a little better each time. Keep reading, keep taking courses and talking to people who are successful. And, it became a passion.
And so in the beginning, I mean, how much support were you getting from within the company in terms of personal development to help you evolve into the role?
It was minimal. The first sales manager opportunity, the one of the owners of the company is a very patient, successful entrepreneur. So, I would go to him and we would have these conversations sitting in his office late in the afternoon, or we'd go out on his boat. And, it sort of just developed this idea that, I couldn't manage people. I really was managing a process and setting expectations and holding people accountable to those expectations. So that really came from him. And then as you develop over time, you can work on the nuances of that. You can develop your techniques. So it's been a journey. And now I have coaching programs for people. I do work fractionally for organizations, and it's really rewarding to watch somebody improve and elevate.
And what was it that drew you to sales in the first place? What is it that resonates with you?
I fell backwards into it, like a lot of us do.
Right.
I literally graduated college, and I was sitting with somebody who became a mentor in New York, and he was like, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." Really, I had no idea. And he's like, "Well, what about sales?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I had retail sales experience. I had hospitality, so." Yeah. And then I just dove into it. It was just it's a very low bar of entry. So you struggle, you get lucky, you work hard, you get luckier, you work harder, you get a little bit luckier, and then you realize, oh, I need some training and some help. And it's what really kept me there was the opportunity to make money with no cap.
Right.
And that I enjoyed not being tied to a desk. And I could go out and engage with people that weren't necessarily looking to talk to me. So I saw it as a bit of a challenge, and that made it fun. But yeah, my training at the beginning was, there's a chair, go move that over to this desk and we'll get you a phone. Right. That was my training. You kind of figured it out.
So how did you cope with it in the beginning in terms of, having to make cold calls and maybe door knock people or however you did it? How did you deal with that? Was that something that came to you easily, or was that a bit of a struggle in the beginning?
It's a struggle, but I put myself in a position where I had no choice but to be successful. So I would go out and do what they call canvas a building, where you can't do this anymore, but you would go to the top of a building in Manhattan and walk down to the bottom, walking down all the floors. And you were looking for companies, you were looking for names of people, and then you would go back and look at a reverse directory and I would make roughly 400 to 425 dials a day, maybe talk to 5 people. So it's it took a year before I got success. But you got to be committed. And again, I was in a position where I was all in, and there was no option of losing. So I just did what I needed to do within the bounds of ethics.
And how did you manage that with the daily grind to having to make that amount of phone calls?
It was a challenge. But it was what was necessary, right? The people that were around me, the ones that were successful, the ones that were sitting in big offices with windows, you would go and talk to them, and how do you do this? How did you get here? Well, at your level, you have to go do the grunt work. You got to go build it. And the ones that were, and you could see people in the middle, right? And the ones that were willing to do the work had success. So it's always the people that are willing to do the things that other people aren't are the ones that get successful. And you have to have the drive and the discipline.
Yeah. Discipline being key, isn't it? That you got to be able to do it day in, day out.
And you have to be willing to do it without knowing how to do it, right? So to me, it's like I made a commitment that I was going to be successful. I was going to New York and I was just going to do this, a dumb kid from the Midwest. And then, so you have to have the courage to move forward, right? Knowing that you don't know what you're doing. And then as you go through this and learn and make mistakes, you build up that confidence level, you build up those skills. And I was in a role where you had very little income. You ate what you killed. So if you weren't killing something, and these deals took a year to put together, so it was so I have empathy for people who are working hard and not having success, but I struggle with the people who can't make 25 phone calls in a day. It just it boggles my mind.
And when you say 25 phone calls, presumably a lot of those you won't actually talk to anyone. It's just making 25 dials.
Well, these days, when I'm asking somebody to make 25 calls, half of them are to people that they've already engaged in. They need to be doing some prospecting, but I mean, that's sort of the minimum in most of these scenarios. Because they're getting leads brought into them in many cases.
Right.
Me, it was like there was nothing. I had to go create something. I had to create my list.
Yeah.
Right. I had to find their phone number. And nobody was eager to speak to me or tell me about their problems. So it was it was really, I look back at it and man, did that suck, but it was also great. Because you would get burned out. But what I learned is, you're out working and canvassing a building and then you go back and make phone calls. Well, in that in between time, you can go take an hour and go sit in the park, or you can go and kind of just collect yourself. And you don't have a day or 2 days to kind of collect yourself. You take a little bit of time to get yourself regrouped, and you find ways to do that.
Yeah. So when you're talking about the 25 before, you're really talking about 25 connects. You're actually talking to a minimum of 25 people a day. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're shooting for 25, I mean, for me, it was 425 dials. I would literally speak to 5 or 6 people. 3 of them would hang up on me. Right, and you would have 2 literal conversations. I don't think it's prospecting is any easier than it used to be. It just takes the same amount of discipline. Sending out 100 emails isn't going to necessarily get it done. The phone still works. Text messaging works. Voicemails are part of it. You can email. Going and knocking on a door, that still works. Especially. You have to know your audience. You have to know who your customer is, and you got to figure out when. My audience is a CEO. So if I call them at 3:00 on a Friday afternoon, and they answer the phone, I'm like, "Why are you answering the phone? It's 3:00 on a beautiful Friday afternoon, right?"
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Why are you calling me?" And I'm like, "Well," and then we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
So you have to figure that part out, and some of that takes trial and error, and it takes numbers to get there. But you got to be smart about it too. You got to be calling people that you can help, and then you have to be saying things to these people that help them understand that you're different.
Yeah. So when it comes to looking to hire salespeople, what are the key qualities that you look for?
I'm looking for somebody that has the right mindset, right? So we look at it as, do they have the desire and the commitment to do what it takes? Because it's hard. It's a difficult job. They need to have some responsibility. And then we think about what's the thing that happens most often with salespeople is that they get in their own way. So why is that? And I use this analogy: the longest distance on a golf course is the 8 inches between your ears. It's the same in sales, right? We get in our own way. So we some of us need to be liked. So it's difficult for us to ask questions. Some people have trouble talking about money, especially when there's large sums of it necessary. Some people, get too emotional, get too invested, right? So I'm looking at mindset. I'm looking at their will to sell. The skills are almost third on the list because those are the easiest things to teach somebody.
Right.
So I'm looking for somebody that can articulate what it is that they do to sell. So they need to be able to explain to me their process. And if they don't have a process, then they're winging it. And that winging it isn't going to get you consistency. So there's about 6% of the salespeople across the planet that are what we would call elite. And 14% that are good. So those people, they have it figured out. They sound different. They're able to articulate what it is that they're looking to, how they go about differentiating themselves. They talk about a process. They talk about how they do discovery. So there's this idea that, salespeople are born. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
I think that people can be trained, and if they have the desire and commitment, and they take responsibility. I think there's this, our mindset really makes a difference, because as a kid, we're taught, don't talk to strangers, don't talk about money, that's rude. Don't ask a lot of questions because that's just rude too. And then as salespeople, we're asked to go out, talk about money, talk to people that don't know us, and ask a lot of questions. So we have this fundamental block about what it is that we're supposed to do. So, I mean, it's the hiring process is complicated. And I think that most companies go about it backward. And if they think about it differently, they'll get different results.
And tell me, you mentioned before about a group of salespeople being very good and then the elite. What's the difference between the very good group and the elite group?
Consistency. Consistency in their effort, consistency in their mindset, and consistency in trying to get a little bit better every time.
Right.
Their willingness to get coached, the willingness to look at what they did and think about, so if I lose an opportunity that I should win, the first place I go is, what didn't I do well? Right? What could I have done better? And many salespeople look at, oh, the economy's terrible, the buyer was confused, the buyer doesn't know what they're doing, our prices are too high, right? And there might be some elements of that are there, but it's our job as salespeople to help that buyer understand that we can help them. It's not their job as a buyer. So the difference really is that consistency, but it's mostly mindset.
Yeah, it seems to me the willingness to constantly reflect on what you're doing and identify how you can constantly improve. Like, even if the reality is, say, the economy is responsible for the loss of the sale, chances are there's still things that you could have done better, which may or may not have overcome the obstacle. But if you're quick to blame someone else or something else, you're missing an opportunity to reflect and learn through the process yourself.
I mean, yes, in the economy, right? Those situations are the same for everybody. People are still buying things. The process might be slowed. So as a good salesperson and an elite salesperson, we need to go meet them where they are. We need to go help that buyer see that they still have a problem. We need to ask questions that make us sound different than our competitors, to make them think different. And that's a part of that elite and good. They ask enough questions. They ask good questions. They ask tough questions. And we know we ask a tough question when that prospect looks at us and says, "It's a tough question," right? And they ponder and think about it. Now we're getting someplace. We're challenging.
And how do you train a salesperson to evolve into being able to ask lots of questions, but ask insightful questions? You know, you're talking before about, you know, differentiating yourself partly through questions. How do you teach people to evolve in that regard?
Well, the short answer is it depends, but I'll give you a better answer. We have to meet that salesperson where he or she is. So if they're a competent salesperson and they're having success, we need to get them to see what they could do differently to get a little bit better, and help them see that. But we go backwards, right? We take steps back. What is it that salesperson wants? What is the thing that they're really looking to achieve? Do they want something material? Do they want a lake house? Do they want a house on the beach? Do they want a new boat? They want a bigger house, right? They want something material. Or are they intrinsically motivated and they just want to be part of something that's bigger than them, and be part of this organization or this movement? And maybe they just want to just help as many people as possible. So we have to figure out that motivation to train them and to coach them. So I think we want to make sure that we have the right people in a training room, right? Are they serious? Are they looking to get better? Because there's a lot of money spent on training, and often it's wasted on people that are never going to implement it. Somebody feels good because we did training. Hey, we checked the box. But I mean, I see sales organizations training the salespeople and leaving the sales managers out. I mean, I literally was doing a training last year, and I said, "Where's Bob?" Well, Bob's sales manager. Yeah, get him in here. I think we need Bob, because who's going to keep these guys on the straight and narrow if Bob isn't aware of what we're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's that fundamental. So I think we have to make sure we got the right people to train, and we got the right mindset, that these people are open to this idea of getting better. And then we have to talk about what this is going to yield them in a way that's meaningful to that individual.
And just picking up on what you just said, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it strikes me that there's probably an element out there of people that think that once they become sales manager, they know it all and they don't need to do this training. So not only keeping them abreast of what you're training, but maybe they will benefit themselves because maybe they don't know everything. And isn't it really, it starts from the top down. And if your sales manager is showing a willingness to constantly learn, it doesn't claim to know it all, that will flow through to the sales team themselves and build a culture of everyone accepting they've got something to learn and having that willingness to learn.
That's how you build a culture, is leadership actually being willing to be vulnerable and be authentic, and say, you know, I don't have that answer, but let's figure this out. And that sales manager should be spending most of their time coaching those people, their team, on technique, coaching them on strategy, coaching them on making sure that there's alignment with what they're doing, their tactics with the strategy, and that they're saying that their team is saying the same thing. You know, there's a lot of companies I see that they think that because they have a vision and they've articulated the vision with their core values and some mission statement, that's enough for salespeople to go tell a story. And it's not. Salespeople don't have the ability to create a consistent message. We need to share that with them. We need to help them. They need to tell the story themselves in their way, but they need to be saying the same story that the other person's saying to their customer. There needs to be consistency and congruency with the marketing. So, you know, there's a lot of elements into training, and that's why I think it should be last. It should be the absolute last thing we do in a development process. Because if you don't have the foundation in place, the training will be wasted.
So tell me, if you're faced with a situation where you've got a great salesperson, but they don't fit the culture, versus a lesser salesperson, but they fit the culture, and you had to get rid of one of them, which would you get rid of and why?
If they're both performing and
Yeah,
one of them
one's
is,
a high level, one's the top salesperson, but they just don't fit the culture for whatever reason. The other one's kind of like more of an average salesperson, but they fit the culture. Which one would you tend to want to get rid of, and which one would you keep, obviously, and why?
the one that isn't a culture fit, assuming your culture is what we want and is
Yes.
performance based, right? Then I would get rid of the person that's not a fit in a minute.
Right.
A toxic person, gone, right? We
Yeah.
don't need trouble. I want somebody that's going to push the envelope and challenge people. But if they're not fitting in with the rest of the team, they got to be gone. I don't care about their revenue. We got to be smart about it. We got to plan for it. But
Yeah.
that is always going to stop you from building a great culture. And then the person that's doing the work but not having as much success, that person, you can, if they really want to grow, you double down and help them, right? You, as a sales manager, we need to show that person. It's like being a parent. We're not always their friend, but we need to let them know that we care and that we earn the right to have the tough conversations with them because we care. And they got to feel that. And that's challenging for a lot of sales managers. But you get rid of the person that's not a culture fit, without a doubt.
Right. So culture comes first.
As long as it's a productive culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been part of cultures that were toxic, right? And that's a whole different animal, right? You gotta get the culture in alignment before you start weeding the people out.
Yeah. So tell me, how has, just changing it up a little bit, how has working remotely impacted on managing a sales team? And has it impacted on what you look for in a salesperson now, if they're working remotely?
Well, I use a tool that helps us understand their ability to work remotely. But I think it's less of an impact on salespeople and sales management than there is in other parts of an organization. Because we've always been out there, and doing things. I think what's really important in the remote situation is that we have crystal clear expectations, that those expectations we're holding people accountable to them for those expectations, and that we have a very clear process that people are supposed to follow that that allows them to take a buyer on a journey through the company efficiently and effectively. So, I've been doing remote since I started this. Most of my clients are not within driving distance, and technology has gotten better because it had to. It's one of the great things about capitalism. We make improvements where areas where we need to make more money and the bandwidth. So I think it's important that somebody has the responsibility for that, and you can poke around and ask questions about their ability to navigate. But if certain people just aren't able to hold themselves accountable and to be disciplined, and those people shouldn't be in a remote job.
Yeah. And as you say, salespeople often are left, to a certain extent to their own devices, and often can be out and about anyway. So, the whole concept of working remotely is not such a change for them as opposed to others. The only thing is, what about in terms of culture when you're largely, the sales team are not in the office, they're working remotely, aren't coming in? How much more difficult is it to manage the culture? And what sort of different things would you do to try and manage the culture in that sort of remote environment?
Well, if we have a team that's spread out across the country, right?
Yeah.
And it's a big country, then we need to do things consistently that brings everybody together, right? Whether that's a quarterly meeting where we bring the team together to do some training, to do an event, to do something, right? That we need to focus on that. We have to maintain that culture by talking about our core values and bringing that up at the beginning of our meetings and sharing, the communication that's happening within the organization. Communication is always important, but what we communicate and how we communicate it with each other in a remote situation is really, really important. Sharing the details about an organization, but also about the people, right? Bob's having a tough time right now. He's got some things going on. Give him some grace. Maybe give him a call to check in on him, right? We can do that as a team to support each other if we have the right culture. I think the challenge for salespeople was, and they're still struggling, but it's gotten a lot better, is what we're doing, right? Having these kinds of virtual meetings, it was very, very difficult. I mean, if you think about it, people didn't want to turn their camera on.
No.
People were resistant to showing up and being engaged and not looking at their phone or doing laundry or whatever, right? And that was a fight with me early on. Like, hey, turn your camera on. Well, I'm kind of not in, like, it's a business meeting. You should be prepared. So they're in a sweatshirt and a baseball hat and they haven't showered, right? And it's like, is this how we conduct business with customers? So there was a transitional period where people just had to get comfortable because they were at home and they didn't know, right? They're trying to make things work given their life, balance and stuff. So now people have a dog barking in the background and people don't even think about it.
Yeah, certainly involved, that's for sure. So tell me, what, in your opinion, makes a great sales manager? What are the key qualities to being a great sales manager?
Empathy, the ability to follow a process, an ability to create clear expectations about what the activities and behaviors and mindset should be of the individual, and then holding everybody accountable to that. Accountability doesn't need a stick. You can use a carrot. It can be positive if we're talking about what this individual wants. We align their goals with the company goals, and we're pulling the wagon in the same direction. Sometimes we have to be creative. We also have to recognize that not everybody's the same. I mean, every salesperson has a different style and bravado and persona. So we need to meet them where they are as a sales manager. But I think the biggest challenge for sales managers is coaching. That ability to listen, ask questions, and really dig into it and resist the urge to answer the first question, to get that person to engage and think about what they're doing. Because we want that. We don't want to be the hero all the time as a manager. We want that individual to rise up, because that's really how we should measure a leader, is how many people are they developing? How many people are able to grow and become a leader themselves, right? So we shouldn't, it's not a zero-sum game, right? If my people get better and they need me less and they're winning, yay, right? We're doing our job. And that should be the goal, that we raise enough people up that they grow and become leaders too.
Yeah. And in terms of anyone that wanting to get into sales, what would you consider to be the keys for people being successful in the industry?
Well, they're going to have the commitment to do what it takes and be willing to do what you don't want to do. I mean, that's a big part of sales. We lose more than we win.
Yeah.
And there's not many professions where that works, right? The meteorologist, the weather person, they get it wrong all the time and they keep their job, right? In the States, we have baseball players who, keeping a 30% batting average, they're making a lot of money, right? In sales, we make pretty good money out of the 30% win rate. But that means we lose 7 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So we got to be prepared. You got to have the mindset to be willing to do whatever it takes to be successful within the bounds of ethics.
Yeah.
And then that discipline to go do what somebody else isn't willing to do. And it's really not much more complicated than that. You can learn how to be, asking the right questions. You can learn techniques. There's plenty of books out there. I mean, for less than $100, you can buy the books that are going to give you some of the basics. But you can invest in yourself. Plenty of trainers out there that will help you succeed. Get yourself a coach, right? But you got to be willing to do that tough stuff.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the key things, isn't it? That probably the vast majority of people aren't willing to do it. Therefore, the vast majority of people won't succeed in the industry.
And that's why you have 6% that are elite, 14% that are good, and about 20% that are average. And most of the people are awful because of the low bar. It's really that simple. People can get into sales for the same reason I did. I don't know what else to do.
And just to wrap it up, just tell me a little bit about your company and what it offers to help people develop their sales teams.
Well, there's a couple of things that we focus on. We're not a fit for everybody. We like to work with that small to mid-size organization that has somewhere between 5 and 20 salespeople that are still trying to scale, right? They've reached a plateau. Maybe that plateau is 8 million, maybe it's 12 million, but they're trying to get to 16 or 24. I love that. I love that kind of company because that business owner, that entrepreneur is still engaged, and they're trying to get themselves more freedom. Those salespeople are hungry because they're not working for that company with the big logo. They got to go out and fight, which I love that mentality. So we help those companies with coaching programs. We help them with hiring programs. We have a different approach to hiring. We help them with messaging. If you think your salespeople will figure out how to tell your story, you're wrong. So we need to give them the story so they can go tell the story and play their instrument, if you will. And then, the fundamentals, like we can help somebody build a sales process that's repeatable, that will allow you to scale. And we help them through those different levels within the coaching programs. That's the fun part.
Yeah. All right. Well, the other thing I should add just before we go is, of course, you've got your own podcast, Sales and Cigars. So I'm assuming that means that's 2 of your passions in life, cigars and sales.
They are. The cigars are, as my wife say, a bad habit I picked up about 20 years ago because they go hand in hand with golf. I retired from golf, but the cigars are still a thing. So it was in sales, we try to talk about things that are sales related that help that entrepreneur think differently about sales. I appreciate you mentioning that, but it's, as you know, podcasts are a lot of work. But if you're not having fun with it, you're probably not doing it wrong. You won't do it for a long time. We've got 230 some episodes in the can.
Wow. That's a great effort. That's a lot. I mean, I think I'm at about 140 odd, 150. So
way past the average. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, for sure. But as you say, you've got to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, what are you doing? So, and for me, it's an amazing platform on which you can get to meet some people from around the world that you would never otherwise get to meet and learn so much that, otherwise you would never have got the opportunity to have learned. So I think it's an amazing platform, great opportunity.
Yeah, and that's part of it, right? I mean, I have 3 criteria, right? I want my guests to to get a win. I want my audience to learn something, get something out of it, and I want to learn.
Yep. Yeah.
Have a little fun.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, like you, I mean, hopefully people listen and learn, but at the very minimum, I when I interview someone, I expect to learn something, and that alone is a win for me.
Makes it worthwhile, right?
100%. All right. Well, thank you very much, Walter, for being on the show. You have agreed to stay on, and we're going to do a segment in a moment called Read to Succeed. But for this episode, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to staying in touch in the future.
Yeah, same here. I appreciate the opportunity. It was a great conversation. Thank you.